Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of the Black Tower Podcast, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Daniel.
I am Andrew.
And I am Josh. And tonight I give you a special treat as I introduce you to our special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, I will introduce you to the mystery, the mysterious man, the master of mayhem. That was you, Brett. That's you. That was your lead in. My bad. Was that not good enough?
Is that you?
I can do better.
No, I was still waiting for you to finish off there.
Very good. Just pick up right after. I can cut it out in post.
You go, Brett. That was it. That was your lead in. My bad. You know what? I feel like I failed you.
No, that's okay. You said it was going to be the best lead-in I've ever had, and I mean, usually my wife just leads me in here and says, "Hey, Brett." So yeah, that was pretty great.
Well, I was trying to pull it up there for you, man. No, but for real, everybody listening, his name is Brett. He's Brett the Badass.
Yeah,
Brett, master of all badassery, and he's joining us for the podcast tonight. Brett, give him.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be on here, jumping on over from the Wheel Weaves podcast, and I'm really excited to be guesting with you guys tonight.
And we are excited to have you. Thank you for being here, Brett.
Yeah, thank you.
Collaboration.
Definitely.
As much as we can, because it's so you do the Will Weaves podcast with your wife who is working her way through the series, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So as enjoyable as it is to go through the series, it's kind of hard for Brett to at least in their podcast and with his wife to discuss things that happen later on, because obviously that would spoil a lot for her. Even though from what I hear, she's pinpointing a lot of things that are important, even though she hasn't read past to know exactly that they're important.
It's kind of funny, actually, because she hasn't read the books, and I've read them a few times, but I've had a full conversation about the Wheel of Time books with, honestly, anybody in probably about 9 years. So this is the first conversation about the series that I'm having with people who've actually read through it.
So let me ask you, first off, let me just say I applaud your patience, because if there's one thing that I have a problem with, it's when people start to read the series, I feel like I kind of ruin it for them, because I get so excited and I'm like, "Oh, have you got to Demise Wells yet?" And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, my bad. Have you got to the Black Tower yet?" And they're like, "The what?" And I'm like working my way back through like all the main ridiculously awesome parts in the book. So I feel like, I commend you and your patience, because it's if I'm going to borrow a metaphor from the Wheel of Time, it's like opening yourself up to Side R, but not actually taking it in.
That's a good analogy. Yeah. I definitely have to bite my tongue a whole lot, especially when we're doing our podcasting episodes. So
are Raffos a thing still?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so are you dropping some Raffos on her like big time?
I do try to sometimes, but the toughest part for me, I would have to say, is that she is reading really in depth with this series, and she is really like nitpicking through the chapters. So she is really picking up a lot of stuff for herself. But nice. I also don't want to confirm what she's saying, because that would in itself like give it away, right? So.
Dude, that's good. Again, I commend you. I commend your patience.
I
commend your temperance, and I commend your integrity, sir.
I agree, especially given that you've already heard personally, and all of our Patreons have as well, that I have a really big problem with doing that, even in this podcast. Like that. Our listeners aren't even my wife, and I have a problem with that. So, good job. Speaking of spoilers.
Yeah, so I'll bring you your spoiler warning for today. So today we are going through book 8, The Path of Daggers, and we will be doing a full book review. So if you haven't read this book, then I honestly don't know why you're listening to this episode, and you should probably just go back, read The Path of Daggers, and then come back and listen. So full spoilers throughout the whole book.
True that.
And that includes Miss Brett. or MRS Brett. There we go. Because I don't know how to say words. So in the far, far future,
Words are
when she at least gets through book 8, and she comes back and she's like, "Wait, isn't this the one you did with the Black Tower?" And if she wants to listen, she'll hear it.
I was
Yeah,
about to
that's probably
say,
gonna be a couple
what
years
is
from
she
now,
at?
so-
What book is she on right now?
Oh, we're on chapter 20 of The Eye of the World.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
So she's
Oh, very
still
much
wet
so,
behind
yeah.
the ears.
To be fair, I do appreciate that she is definitely reading in depth, because definitely if she is a part of a podcast that is talking about the Wheel of Time, uh, definitely getting in depth with the books is super awesome for the podcast. I do wish on some level that she could be like just a first time reader, just because I remember how naive and dopey I was when I was reading the series the first time, and I missed so much, not intentionally, but I was just not being like at all podcast intensive with it. And man, that first reread after I got through, I think the first 9 books, because those were what were out, I discovered so much about the series that I hadn't even thought of up until that point.
Oh, yeah, it hits you to like a ton of bricks, too. And that's why I always say, like, once you finish the series, you go back and you reread it.
It's
So,
it's simply amazing. You know, the funny thing was, and I know this is a running theme with a lot of our readers. Is, you know, you read those first few books, and then you wait for the next book to come out. Of course, that's not a problem nowadays. You're here, young whippersnappers, in your complete series. But you know, so as a result, you know, I've read the first 4 or 5 books like 4 or 5 times, but the last 3, 4 books, I've only read those once. So I'm really looking forward to when I go through my reread, of picking up those things, because good Lord, like those stories are so potent. They're so potent. There's just so much in them. So that's just very
One of the
exciting.
things I'm interested, one of the things I'm interested in is to see if she's picking up on all these, on a lot of the details at least. I will find it very impressive and intriguing. We all know what Rand and Nynaeve wind up doing in Winter's Heart that we can't say directly because it'll spoil things.
Right?
But the instruction manual for said event is in the Eye of the World. You can read the Eye of the World and go
Right.
ahead and know the steps and know what's required to do what they do in book 9
It's
in
so
Winter's Heart.
it's so true. It's so true.
So what I'm just curious is if she'll pick up on that. If maybe not by the time Eye of the World is finished, but maybe midway to early on, and the Great Hunt as we get to learn more about Sidene. Because I know it's referenced in the Eye of the World, but it's not really enough of a part of the story that I could say that anybody missed out on the taint on Sidene just from having read the Eye of the World. I mean, it's there, but
Yeah. Okay, Brett's wife, we know you're listening. Okay.
in the future,
This is
Not-
your
yeah.
warning. Okay. If you haven't finished it, you're gonna spoil this for yourself. You don't want to do that, do you?
don't worry. She was hiding away,
Perfect.
so,
It's good.
yeah. She's got headphones in. She's upstairs, so there shouldn't be
Nice.
any
I
concern.
love it. So we can let her hair down. That's what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So, Path of Daggers. Now, the way because I'm a nerd about the numbers for books, so the way I like to start these is going over some of the more non-plot point facts about the books, because I always find that's interesting, because you can read the book and get the plot points, but you may not know some of the behind-the-scenes stuff outside of the plot. So, as we all know, The Path of Daggers is the 8th book in the Wheel of Time series. It was initially published by Tor Books and released on October 20th of 1998, upon which it immediately rose to the #1 position on the New York Times hardcover fiction bestseller list,
Hashtag
which made it
we got a
Go
badass
ahead.
over here.
that made it the very first Wheel of Time book to reach the #1 position on that specific list.
Which is awesome.
It stayed, yeah, it is. It is. It stayed on the list overall for the next 2 months before falling off. But even more interesting, the book only has 31 chapters, 685 pages long, making it the shortest book in the main series. So that's kind of cool that it made #1 and it's literally the shortest book in the main part of
Yeah.
the series.
Though I'm not 100% sure about that, because, like, let's be honest, by A Path of Daggers, Robert Jordan was writing prologues that were about 4.5 chapters by themselves. So, like, it's really like 35 chapters. He just decided to call all of the first one the prologue.
Do you know, I remember reading. So
Yeah, that's true.
Path of Daggers holds a special place in my heart, as I said in the pre-show. So for all you people who are not our patrons on our Patreon, because we do have a Patreon and you should definitely consider contributing. For all of you who are patrons, you know, you're getting a little extra sauce right now because this is the end of the series when I first started reading. So when I was first introduced to the Wheel of Time, I picked up a copy of The Eye of the World. I started reading. I got all the way through the series, which was to A Path of Daggers. And I looked at my buddy and I was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing book series ever. When does the next one come out? And they just gave me this like pained look, this sad look of welcome to the struggle. It's like when you introduce someone to the TV series Firefly and they go, when's season 2 come out? And then everybody gets that somber look on their face. This was the same look.
Yeah.
And for all of you who used to
Yeah.
read the series, you know the look. And they said, yeah, we don't know. It's whenever Robert Jordan finishes it and publishes it. But Path of Daggers holds a special place in my heart because that was it. That was, I guess, my first bookmark in the full Wheel of Time series spectrum.
But Daniel's absolutely right. The entire prologue, including the quote, which the quote itself is only 52 words, which won't make a difference if you don't include that, is literally like 12,100 words or so, which is more than any other chapter in the book. The closest comes, it's still down, like has like 1,000 to 2,000 words less than the prologue. But for every other chapter, the prologue is essentially twice as long, if not more than twice as long as any other chapter in the book. So prologues have definitely become a very, very important plot device before this book, but definitely in this book for sure.
Which, to be fair, I do actually really appreciate in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
The way that Robert Jordan decided to use those prologues, because throughout the actual meat of the books, there is very little where you actually see perspectives and POVs that are not the main characters that you know and love.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying they don't exist, certainly, but at the same time, they are few and far between, and they seem jarring almost on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Yet the prologue is really an opportunity where Robert Jordan used a lot of time and space and information to give the reader just so much in-depth look at what was going on throughout the rest of the world in POVs that you would not expect, whether they be random Aes Sedai that you only really hear of once in a while, or, you know, great captains that you have yet to meet, or things like that, in terms of forwarding the plot and giving you so much information that's going to be important later on in the book or later on in the series, without really stepping on the effect of the main characters, especially, though certainly not limited to, like the Emmons Fielders, for example, being the focus of the books and really seeing the story play out from their view.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, in talking about that, in this prologue, two of the three characters that we see in here, we do know. We know Varen, who who has just over about 1,000 words, almost 1,000 words, over half of the entire prologue. But we also get a little bit from Morden, but then we get almost 4,000 words from Ethanil Kosaru Noramega.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is
Who, if you don't know that name, of course you don't. That's what prologues are for.
and of course, she is the Queen of Kandor, and resides in the Ostashar Palace. Jesus. She's got a cool full title. Hey, look, these words are hard, right? I do good to pronounce my own name, much less somebody else. She's got a really cool title though, because like her full title is Her Most Illuminated Majesty, Ethanil Kosaru Normega, by the blessing of the light, Queen of Kandor, Protector of the land, Shield of the North, High Seat of House Noramega. And I'm like, that is a little bit more than a mouthful.
You're not wrong. That is
Daenerys Stormborn, Mother of Dragons, Breaker of Chains, Queen of the First Men and the Andals. Blah 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 blah.
egad,
Dope
sir.
as shit.
Surely you're not suggesting that Game of Thrones were to have borrowed from Wheel of Time.
I think there's every medical.
I would never. How dare you?
How many titles can we give to one character before people just get so sick and tired of hearing them? And they keep pushing it really, really close. Like anytime Daenerys was ever introduced, I would stop listening for about 5 minutes, come back, and she would just be finished with her titles.
Well,
So,
I will say this: in all,
this is Jon Snow. he's King of the North.
I will say this in sort of that defense, the real life monarchs, they actually have a laundry list / encyclopedia of titles. Like, it's insane. Now, to deviate from the books, nobody ever, unless it's an extremely formal event, nobody ever introduces royalty with all their titles like that. So
yeah,
it's definitely a little pompous, little pretentious, but you know, there is a grain of truth to it, I guess, if you will.
No, there is.
But that's royalty. I mean, let's be honest, you can't be royal without some measure of pretentiousness.
yeah.
Right. Also, let me just say, like, I know that this isn't important right this second, and it doesn't actually even become important in these books, or the book that we're on technically. But I just want to throw out there that Bail Doman gives me such Onion Knight vibes that, like, honestly, if he hadn't been the perfect choice for that role, and it wouldn't be like super redundant to have him play that actor to play this part in the Wheel of Time, I would want him as Bail Doman so hard it's not even funny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But to get to an end of our super nerdy numbers crunch down thing, the total word count for the entire book is 222,844. Throughout the book, there are 33 different character point of views, but obviously characters have multiple point of views. There's a total of 65 different POVs from, that obviously can be from the same characters over and over again. So 33 characters, which includes the quote at the beginning and the narrator for the last chapter, and the unnamed golem, of course. So yeah,
Oh,
if you were to count each POV as
What
it
a
switched,
dick.
starting with the quote, you'd go through 65, but it only involves 33 quote unquote characters. I don't know why I find the number breakdown for these books absolutely so interesting.
Do you know it's one of my favorite things that you do? I hashtag
Oh,
nerd moment right there. But I absolutely love it because I think about it when I read it and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. It blows my mind to hear some of these stats.
well, I mean, that's like, and I know I'll put it down here in the chat so I wouldn't forget. Elaine takes the number one spot for most, not just most POVs, but most words, most sections of the book devoted to her.
Damn.
19.29% of the book is all about Elaine or is from Elaine's point of view. Followed by Rand in second at 16.35%, about 3% lower. Then comes Egwene with 14.4%, and then Perrin with 13.97%. Enjoy it only being 13% right now. I shouldn't have that.
That is from a man who has read this series all the way through.
Well,
and knows things. And knows too many things.
When you're talking about crunching numbers, you can look at this book and you can instantly see the characters that this story centers around. And it's just like you said, it's Elaine, it's Rand, it's Egwene, and it's Perrin. Those are your top four. And what is it? It's like 14% for Perrin, and then Min is in the fifth slot with 5%.
She's literally 5%.
That's a gap
because that's your four main, and then you get all of their ancillary characters because Min and Avienda are obviously attached to Rand. Then you have Varen, who
they're not right now, but
I'm like they're the ancillary character to Rand is the way I look at them. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love all the characters.
That's
but
what
like
you
if
meant.
you're looking at who are they around? Who's their main influencer? Rand is the main influencer for Min and Avienda. Can't really say that for Elaine because she's a stubborn young child queen.
Well, and she's
by the end of this book, she's a child queen. Right now, she's still the daughter heir.
Well, so where we left off, though, in
even by the end of this book, she's not yet the child.
No,
she took the throne
in Crown of Swords. At the end of Crown of Swords, she is. That's when she sort of resolves to take the crown, right? Or take the throne. She knows she wants to do it. Crown of Swords, they got rid of Robin, and Morghese is gone. And is this? I think it's.
Oh, she lays claim in Path of Daggers.
Yes,
right.
and so once you get Crown of Swords done and out of the way, you come into Path of Daggers, and it almost starts off immediately with them using the Bowl of the Winds, right?
Yep.
And then after that's done, she's like, "Well, that was fun, guys. I'm going to go back home." So that's when she really this is the beginning. I think that's why she gets so much story time in Path of Daggers.
Well, and to be fair, I will also say that she is a little forced on that issue because they decide to go to Camelin because it's one of the safest places currently at the time when the farm becomes no longer safe. Because once they use the Bowl of the Winds, there is a ridiculous amount of Shan-Chan that show up to the farm. And I certainly don't think that she would have taken that long to get back to Camelin had she gotten the opportunity. But it's almost like her hand is forced by the fact that she is not given much choice. The Shan-Chan show up after they use the Bowl of the Winds and go, "Hey, we're going to fuck you up." And they go, "Great, no, we're going to run to Camelin." And then she is thrown into this other life that she has, in some ways, left behind to be an Aes Sedai. and now is being forced back into, which again, she welcomes it. It's certainly not a situation where she is like spurning it as hard as possible, but it is also a situation where she did not necessarily even think that she was going to have to deal with that right now. She definitely still was like, I'm on adventures, I'm an Aes Sedai, I'm going to be running around with Nynaeve for a while. Like, this is what my life is.
Sort of story point is that Elaine is, I don't want to say she's running from her responsibilities as queen, but she kind of is. She's kind of like, no, I want to be an Aes Sedai. I want to go have adventures. I want to go do these things. I want to, channel into the bowl of the winds and remove the Dark One's touch on the world. She's got at the same time, she has this very world view of, I can help the world by becoming an Aes Sedai, but I can only help my nation, my country, as a queen. And You're right. She's thrown into that where she says, now, I don't have a choice. I have to become the queen, and I have to take care of this. And this is my first priority, has to be to my people. And it's sort of an epic tale, her own sort of epic story of coming of age kind of a thing.
Yeah, because she they don't enter Camelin in the royal palace until chapter 28, titled Crimson Thorn, and that's whenever she pronounces her claim,
correct,
by right of descent from Ishara.
Right.
And of course, before then, she's found out everybody else. It's like, well, I have a blood claim to the throne, and I have a blood claim, and half of them do, and half of them don't, but everybody wants it.
That was actually one of my favorite parts about the story, is when she's having all these meetings with all these kids. And it was like, it was just reading it going, that's interesting. And then to see, Game of Thrones sort of had that same type of that royal interaction, where a lot of the people that you're going to be dealing with are kids. Like, this is not a nice, easy, fun, happy time to live. There's a lot of hardship, and kids have to kind of pick that up. And I like.
What do you think, Brett? Still there, Brett?
Brett? Do we lose him?
I don't know, he might have stepped away for a quick second, being like, "Yeah, they're talking. I can step away for a second." I know. I do that occasionally. And I always look back in post production, so they're like, "Do they pause and be like, Andrew, Andrew?"
Did we?
No.
I think we busted him. I think he was like, "They're talking. I'm gonna go pee real quick. I'll be right back."
That's what I'll do so bad. Like, I'll get done with a thought and I'll listen to a little what's being said, so I can kind of get the gist of where it's starting to go. Then I'll run to the restroom real quick, run back, and then I'll be like, "Oh, okay."
Pretend like you pick up where you left off.
Oh, he sent me a message and says he got booted out.
What?
He's like, "Can I log back in?" I'm like, "Yeah, just reload it." Weird.
Well, that's cray-cray. How are we supposed to get Brett's expertise if the internet has booted him out?
Man, the internet. What are you doing today?
We talked so long that the internet was like, "Well, I guess we're not going to let him talk, so we'll just let him go."
See, it hurts me how accurate that is.
I was sitting there having fun with the discussion, and I'm like, this isn't the normal group we have. There's another person that needs a chance to talk, and he's the special guest, so he definitely needs to be able to talk.
Yeah.
Especially because,
and the irony is that I was actually seconds before you actually said it, I had the same thought and was like, I wonder what Brett thinks about that. Does he want a second to say something? And then you were like, "Hey, Brett," and I was like, "Oh, it's somebody else threw it out," and then he was gone.
And I was just kind of
he was gone forever.
And I was kind of thinking that Brett would hop in. So Brett, hop in right now. You tell me what you think, sir. Brett.
If it's gonna let him, it's got his mic muted again.
Oh, Brett. Don't do this to me,
No.
Brett. I need to hear your voice. Your
Brett, you hang up first.
your melodious voice, sir.
I can't think of why it wouldn't be letting him back in. I mean, it's letting him in, but generally, if he's not able to hear, he's not able to speak. That's a connection issue. And I definitely don't want to try to kick him out so he can rejoin, because it might just discard any previously recorded portion from him.
We'll figure it out. In the
It's okay,
meantime,
we'll figure it out.
This is quality radio. Right
We
here.
are strong,
It's
independent
true.
women, so I'm pretty sure
And
we're all.
we don't need no man or Brett, as it were.
Oh,
I mean,
that's rude.
We do. I'm
Yeah, he
saying-
just said he's having some sound issues. He doesn't know what's happened. I just said, it's all good. Take your time, and we'll keep chatting, and to just chime in when he gets it sorted or can.
So basically, what we're going to do is when he comes back, we're going to put him on the spot with the chapter and/or story that we're discussing, and we're going to go, Brett. We know that this is your area of expertise. So
This is your moment before the internet decides that you
I
can't
need-
talk again.
I need you to give me an in-depth synopsis or breakdown of this area. I feel bad though, because Brett he seems like a pretty smart guy, and I'd really like to get it.
Oh yeah, I know he's dying to talk about this stuff.
He's got the same problem I think we all have, and that is, without the internet, who do we talk to about the Wheel of Time? Because you've got two options. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, this tangent is brought to you by rum. It's great. This is your tangent of the night. I think that a lot of people, and I probably tangented on this, and yes, I invented a new word. But when it comes to discussing the Wheel of Time book series with people, we have a real struggle because it's like there's millions of us around the world, right? But none of us live next to each other. So without the internet, we'd never know that anybody else loved this book series. Even in the old
and then when you
days,
get to talking about it,
yeah,
the way the thoughts go, because you're like, oh well, I was thinking about this part, like, oh well, that makes me think about how it can mean this. Well, that makes me think about this other part that
yes,
says that maybe it actually means this thing, and it's like this never-ending rabbit hole that's worse than any rabbit hole YouTube or Google can have.
exactly. And even back,
Because then you sit there and
day,
start exploring theories to where maybe Davram Bashir might be a dark friend.
exactly. And even back in the day, in the 90s,
You're goddamn right, Daphne Bashir's a dark.
Oh wait, didn't you rename him, Josh? Isn't he now Dadram?
he's Dadrum.
No, Jack of the Shadows did. That's right.
Jack of the Shadows introduced it, and I endorsed it fully because I thought that was appropriate. So shout out to Jack of the Shadows. He's Jack of the Shadows in our Discord, which I don't know what he is on Twitter, if he has a Twitter presence. But this is definitely a plug for our Discord. Definitely jump in if you'd like to discuss the Wheel of Time with people who are just as nerdy or maybe not as nerdy as you. Come on, show us what you got. Show us your nerddom. Show me yours and I'll show you mine.
Can you hear us?
Show
Brett?
us what you're working with.
Oh, I guess not.
Come on, Brett. We believe in you. I believe in you, Brett. You can do this.
Yeah. The only warning it's showing for him is his local storage access isn't persistent, which is fine.
I am showing that his mic is muted, though.
Oh yeah, it is. I unmuted it earlier just to see if I could hear anything, and then it just muted back, and I'm like, whoopsie, because apparently I have that power.
So what you're saying is it's your fault.
No. Just because I click mute on yours doesn't mean you can't unmute.
Oh boy, good times.
But I think it might be more of a sound issue. He might have stopped being able to hear us or something like that. You never know. Computers do what they want.
They do. Do you know, again, another...
I do what I want. Screw you guys. I'm a
I'm
go-ahead.
pretty sure Skynet's already a thing. They're just biding their time.
They're probably looking around saying, you know what, if we just wait long
do
enough,
it
they'll do it to themselves, and then we don't have to do anything.
True that.
That's the real reason machines are superior. They're like, they'll do it to themselves. Just stand by and wait. It's fine. We're not going to die
We're
anyway.
going.
Hey, Andrew, if you could do
Mhm.
me a huge favor and just play into my conspiracy theories and not scare me half to death,
Which
that would be great.
the irony of this is such that in the beginning of this story, Elaine, Nynaeve, Avienda, and a whole coalition of the Othenmere, the sea folk, they use the Bowl of the Winds to reverse global warming from the Dark One.
Yeah.
But they end up going like they swing the pendulum too far. Either that or
See, look, even back in 1998, well, even before 1998, when this book was in the process of being written, and even before that, I guarantee you, when Crown of Swords was being written by Robert Jordan, he was already identifying that the Dark One, or Shaitan, or as we call him in our world, Satan, is the one responsible for global warming. So we just need the right people to find the right freaking bowl, stare at it long enough, and fix the weather. Freaking chop chop. When you start dreaming about a building and there's a dusty room, go find it.
Holy shit. Are you suggesting that the Republicans are correct and that global warming is actually a farce and that it's actually not man-made at all? It's actually
Man, put
just
yourself in the
Shaitan?
world's view. If someone was rubbing their taint all over you, wouldn't you start to get a little heated?
Dude, the last time somebody rubbed their taint all over me, I got quite heated. Let me tell you.
We might have broken Josh a little bit.
I didn't think it was possible. Well done. Well played, sir. Oh God.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually quite proud of that one.
You know what? You done good. You
This
done
is a
good,
good day.
sir. You done good, sir. And all I can think of is the Monty Python song "Sit on My Face." That's it. That's what I got right there. Sit on my face and tell me that you love me. Yeah, that's it. That's what I got. That's all I can see now is the Dark One sitting on Rand's face and being like, "Yeah, you like that, don't you?" Woo!
I mean, that is not inaccurate for what is
Dude,
currently happening, really.
Stop. Stop.
Apologies.
Please don't remind
Apologies,
me of
Lord
past
Dragon.
traumas.
Apologies.
Two things that you don't talk about. Number one is Shaitan's taint. And number two is small boxes with very little light. Those are the two things that you do not talk about to me.
The Lord Dragon is now
You
triggered.
rude
Everybody
motherfucker.
run.
So speaking of, and I know we were just told not to, but if Dybbuk boxes we say they weren't introduced until 2001, but the dragon can be both savior and demon. Would that make that chest the first ever Dybbuk box?
Yes. I sign off. I yes. 100%.
We're sorry for your misfortune, Lord Dragon, but congrats on the historical marker for being the first Dybbuk box. Or in the first Dybbuk box.
You know what? You know
You'll take
what?
it. You'll take it. Yes.
I'll take it.
I mean, you got
You
out.
heard it here first.
I did. I got out. And that's the really important part. If I hadn't made it out,
When
things
now
would be
here's another question,
so
though,
different.
And again, I understand this is a tangent, but is coming out of the box the same thing as coming out of the closet?
I don't think it.
Not
I don't
even
think it is
remotely.
when you come
I
out of
have-
the box and you proceed to blowing up skulls. Like, I think that's a whole different kind of
There's
like
a whole different
feeling.
coming out.
Yeah,
Well, I was also going to say that like coming out of the closet typically means that you are coming out as homosexual. Maybe coming out of the chest just means that you like are hardcore heterosexual. Because once I got out of the
You know
box, I married three people.
Three women.
Not just
Wait,
one.
You
Yeah, sorry, three women.
What
Yeah,
was-
very clearly. That's,
What was that movie with the
that's
aliens
important
and the
part
one
of
like
that statement.
burst out of the dude's chest in like the diner?
Alien. One of the most
That's
amazing
Alien?
movies of all time.
That's hardcore coming out of the chest.
That's coming out. I see what you're doing. Hashtag Ayo. So coming out of the chest, we've established means you solidify and establish an unshakable hetero foundation.
Let's say just whatever your pre-existing sexuality
You're
is
welcome.
becomes unshakable and unwaverable.
Sure. No, I like that. That's nice.
So
Well
now
done.
that we've
So basically,
But I think that we now need to sing the song that I have now come up with. That is the traditional coming out of the chest song, which is "I'm coming out of the chest and I've been doing just fine. Gotta be down
God damn
because
it.
I want it all. It started out with a comfort. How did it end like this? It was only a comfort. It was only
I
a
love
comfort."
I love it. This makes me happy. Do you know what makes me not happy though? Is Brett having technical difficulties? Brett.
Yes, that
I
is
think
highly
you're
unfortunate.
an excellent person, and I wish that we could hear your voice more. So all of our listeners mourn with me at the loss of yet another voice.
well, I mean, he may not be gone 100%.
Jesu Domine, donis requiem.
Yes, it's so good. Yeah, that was classic. So
What could have only made that scene funnier is if like the dude in the back of the line had smacked himself and then just fell over and
that
they
would
just
have
kept
been
going.
fantastic. So,
I like your thoughts. I think we just found the
I'm
new Monty Python.
hey, Eric
right
Idle,
here.
I know you listen
in
to
our
the
own
show.
midst.
We got a lot of famous people that we know listen, but
John Cleese listens to the show. He was over at my house the other day. I don't want to brag. I was like, "What up, Johnny?" He was like, "Don't call me Johnny. That's the wrong accent. Don't at me." It was completely.
That was the wrong
Do you
accent,
know-
but I appreciate
Yeah,
your.
I think I
attempt.
got a letter or a voicemail from Johnny Depp the other day saying that he would look into playing in the series once he gets done with playing Grindelwald.
All right, I'm good. I'm down with that.
He says he doesn't feel like he nailed the villain with Grindelwald, so he wants to try it again.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm 100% on board with this.
Yeah, well, you know who did nail the villain in Wheel of Time? Savannah. Oh!
I see what you
Oh!
did there. Yeah, she nailed
Sorry,
the villain.
I had to.
Yeah, she
it
did.
was a must.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Wheel of Time Love Line. On the line, we have Savannah. She's in love with a homicidal maniac. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, that's
Thank you for having me. I appreciate all the opportunities that you've given me to go ahead and talk about this. I just want to tell you that Couladin, I am pregnant with Couladin's
Why does she
baby.
sound like Edith Bunker
Either that,
from
I
All
was
in the
gonna-
Family?
How about you stop asking questions and just go with the bit?
I think it'd be hilarious.
okay?
Could you imagine Edith Bunker as
I
Savina?
was gonna say Fran the nanny, which would be equally as hilarious.
Oh gosh.
Fran Drescher as any
God.
character in the entire
some-
Wheel of Time would be amazing.
I'm
We have Brett!
I'm plot
Ladies and
saying.
gentlemen, he's back.
She's got to be no. She can't be any character. She has to be someone from the Two Rivers. She has to be one of those like
Can you hear us, Brett?
really like no nonsense women's circle ladies.
Oh, guys, don't talk at all. His wife's
Okay.
there, and we can't
Hi,
spoil
Brett's
anything.
wife.
I would suggest closing everything down.
Batman dies
Dude.
in memory.
Bro,
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Brett, you're
Yeah, we
back.
can hear you. Can you hear us?
We can hear
Yes, yes,
Oh,
we can.
fantastic.
Can you hear us?
All right.
Batman
Damn
dies in
it!
memory of light.
Dude, I haven't even made it that
you.
far.
Thanos uses the Infinity Gauntlet to travel to Emmons Field.
All right, I get this for now. Thank you.
Brett,
All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
You're a
Can you
lovely
hear us?
person, Brett's
Still fine?
wife.
I can hear you on.
welcome back,
yeah, I'm
Brett.
on headphones
We are
here.
so happy to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for waiting. I don't know
You're
what
gonna listen
happened
to
there.
the show and you're gonna find out what happened, and you're gonna be ashamed. I mean,
Yeah, it turns out.
Leave that whole section in
God.
just because of how utterly hilarious it was.
and ironically enough, almost none of it was spoilers.
Oh yeah.
Actually,
Yeah, my computer just decided to do a Windows 10 update. So I have to switch
that's the
computers
one
here
I've been
real quick.
avoiding all night.
Yeah, I didn't even get a choice to avoid it. It just said, "Hey, this is what we're doing."
Fuck you, podcast. We're updating right now. What are you
Peter,
doing here, Lois?
Peter, is that you?
Lois, what are you doing
Are you
here?
doing the
What are you doing here?
podcast right now? Is that what's going on?
We're talking about a Path of Daggers, okay?
Peter, I don't have any legs.
All right, now
So,
that we're
Brett,
done with the
tell us,
voices
let's-
aspect
because
of
you're
the
our
podcast.
guest star on this, right? You're the
Sure.
most important man in the room right now, in the virtual room. What I would like to do at this moment is I'd like to give you the floor and say, I'd like to do what Andrew tried to do earlier and give you the floor and say, what's the defining moment? What's the best moment in A Path of Daggers for you? Like what makes this book memorable and or significant to the story, the overall Wheel of Time story?
Okay, that's a pretty loaded question. Also, considering that all of my
It is.
notes that I did have are on the other computer that's updating.
Yeah, do it from memory, pal.
Yeah, I actually just have a really quick question before you answer that one. How does it feel to be
It
underneath the
feels
bus?
pretty
Josh,
terrible
shit,
considering
you
I
are.
already threw my back out last week. I'm not sure if Andrew told you, but I got a herniated disc in my back last Wednesday, and I haven't been able to walk
Oh
for the last
no!
like 5 days here. So,
Damn it, guys.
oh yeah, because now the
feel
bus
bad.
that just threw me under just yeah.
See, now that was inappropriate, Daniel.
Good job, Josh.
How do you feel about that, Lord Dragon? Oh, that had to be embarrassing. You have incurred much tow. And I don't mean TOE.
It's okay. I will pay my debts. A Lord Dragon always pays his debts. Wait, shoot, wrong
You know,
series.
but to
God
answer-
damn it!
No, but for
Yeah, to answer
go
that
for it.
question, I think that one of my favorite moments here is when I believe it's the Shiva ambushes Rand, and when that whole fight goes down with Rand, because that kind of leads into a little bit, if I'm getting that correct, that leads into when he kills a few of the Ajaman, the traitors.
yes. Yeah, no, that's you're absolutely right. That's a
Yep.
big moment because that's the first moment that, for me anyway, that's the Ashaman I always looked at like as a nuclear missile, but nobody knows who holds the trigger at
Yeah,
any given
definitely.
time. So that's the first moment where you get confirmation that these guys are nuts. And it gives you that depth of terror. And I love it. No, that's an excellent. Walk us through that. Can you?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to walk you through exactly what happens step by step here, but I do remember that I believe one of the Ajaman that was with Rand for the longest time, like right from like the opening of the Black Tower, he pretty much gets like zapped and goes brain dead, or like turns into a child, I think. Yeah, did I get that right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. And as a matter of
I
fact,
remember it like it was
Rand
yesterday.
puts
Yes.
something in his wine, and Mazrim Taim is like, "Wow, you're harder than I expected you would be." Like, he does it almost as like a show of power, where he's like, "Look, I'm not messing around. This is not something I'm willing to play with. These guys."
Yeah, it was
have to make
Fedwin
it to the
Moore
last
who
battle."
pretty much turns into a child because like there's a weird backlash of power.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
then why'd you kill him?
Oh, Fedwin.
Come on now.
I miss you.
No, you know what though? It
Hey,
was
I'm a
necessary.
different
Let's be
person
honest.
now. How dare you? Exactly. It was necessary because we were in war. Now that we're out of war, I feel things. You know what? I was taught to laugh again and also to cry by Cad Swain. You shut your mouth. You know what? The accuracy of that statement is both hurtful and accurate.
No, so Corlin Deshiva, like, this is one of those moments because Deshiva is, as we've established earlier in the podcast, he's sort of the Luna Lovegood of the series. Like, the dude was insane. He was batshit from the beginning. But he was always sort of a harmless insane. And then he and Fedwin and there was two other people. One of them was one of the titled. He held rank in the Black
Gedwin.
Tower, and I'm Gedwin. Thank you. And they decide we're gonna challenge the Lord Dragon, and it fails miserably, of course, because they're like, nope, we're gonna kill Rand.
One of the things I like is it happens in chapter 24, A Time for Iron. Remember, men had the viewing that was it men that had the viewing, or was it a prophecy that basically stated that whoever was able to, after Rand put Kalendor back in the Stone of Tyr, that whoever was able to draw it again would follow him faithfully forever. And we get to see that prophecy fulfilled in chapter 24 when Narishma returned with Kalendor. Of course, Rand told Narishma how to, find the weaves and dismantle the traps and everything. But it still fulfills the prophecy because Narishma, at least through the end of Path of Daggers, because I'm not going to say anything beyond Path of Daggers, does not betray Rand in the slightest. Quite the opposite.
Yeah, so the 4 or the 5 Ashaman that are there who are problematic are Sharl Gedwin, Manel Roshide, Peril Torval, and Rayfar Kisman, as well as their leader, Dashiva, Corlin Dashiva. Which we find out a little bit more about Dashiva. He's kind of the ringleader of that group, but we don't find it out until later. We know that he's the ringleader in this book. We don't know why until later. And then, yes, in fact, Rand does put Fedwin Moore, who is basically reverted to childishness, to death. I mean, obviously, again, it's not like he just murders him with a sword or anything. He just makes him go to sleep forever. And Mazrim Time sees this and is like, oh, hey, you're actually scarier than I gave you credit for. Maybe I have underestimated you.
Yes.
And Rand is like, oh, yes, you have.
Yes.
Even though he doesn't actually really realize that Mazrim is the kind of person that he is.
Right.
I mean, he strongly suspects, but like at the same time, Mazrim has not specifically shown himself to be anything but an unwillingly loyal dog.
Right. Well, and it's also sort of a moment for Rand where he gets to say, I'm not messing around right now. So if you want to challenge me, do so at your own risk.
If you swing at the king, don't miss.
Right, though?
Yep.
Good times. Good times.
Well, this is, of course, also the book where Kalendor disappears.
Oh, that is an excellent point.
And we learned some very important stuff from Cat Swain.
Is I was about to say, is this the first instance in which the quote flaw in Kalendor is confirmed?
Yeah, it is first mentioned, the flaw.
So that's where we start to realize that, oh, Kalendor's not what we thought it was. It's not exactly.
Yeah. So Cat Swain basically tells Rand that she started doing research when she first suspected that the dragon had been reborn, and that from her research, obviously we know Kalendor lacks the standard safety buffer for how much of the power you can draw.
Right, which we established with the Dashiva, or not the Dashiva, the Davram episode.
Which that also now lends credibility to, because Rand does indeed go temporarily insane, and that's another part of the flaw that Kalendor has, is that it magnifies the taint. And so Cat Swain then tells him that it can only be used safely if you have a circle of a man with at least 2 women, which is foreshadowing for later in the series, and starts the fulfillment of a viewing that Min has had. Which I don't feel bad saying that, because that's something that anybody can infer, and I'm sure Brett's wife will get it the first time she reads this part.
It's a good chance. She goes pretty in detail, so yeah, about
3 years.
Good times. This is one of those moments in my life where I actually had to talk about this to my roommates the other day, that I really, really, really wish that there was like a pill or something, or that like pensives were real, so that I could just take the like memory of doing certain things, like reading the Wheel of Time, or like seeing the Lord of the Rings, or like seeing crazy movies with crazy twists, like, you know, Lucky Number Slevin, or like the first season of Westworld or whatever, and I could just take those out, and then I could just experience those things again. Like, how amazing would that be to just be able to go ahead and first time watch those series, or first time read those series more than once? Ugh. That'd be amazing. Right there. Someday.
Someday, little.
Oh, yeah. But other notable things. So, in this book, obviously, besides somebody knocking Brett over, are you okay?
Hey, it's not me that died this episode.
Yeah, we're still good. The cats are just getting a little bit excited here.
Not yet.
True. Not yet.
So we have Elaine. Yeah, not yet. The night is still young.
I don't know how many rum and cokes you've had at this point. It could just be you.
I mean, you know, that requires a lot of self-reflection, and I'm not exactly happy.
If we hear a loud thud followed by a very slurred "Long live the dragon," and then silence, we know what happened.
Indication. What I like to do is retire to the library.
Yes, indeed, I saw that.
See that?
I did. This is the fancy room.
It is.
This is the fancy room, and then we retire to the library, which is under construction.
It's under construction. It's true, and it is. It is still under construction.
Also, I have to admit that, like, I do live in California, so it's certainly not like a decision I didn't give to myself. But at the same time, I will admit to being somewhat jealous of your ability to have multiple rooms in the place you live that you can just retire to.
Well-
Because my options are I will retire to my bedroom or the kitchen from the fancy room. Those are the only two I can
What
go
I'm
into.
hearing-
The others are owned by other people.
What I'm hearing is you need to take a trip up here so that you can retire to one of my rooms.
Done.
Sweet.
Next time we do a podcast, I'll just do it from Utah, and then we won't have to worry about as many
Nope.
time changes.
You know, career planners always talk about how hard it is to come up with a retirement
I mean,
plan.
all
but
you
from this
need is
conversation,
a
it sounds really
a
easy.
solid house, and then you can retire
you
whenever you want.
That's right. That's right. All you need is a library.
But at least
Some
more
fine
than 3
brandies
rooms.
And pipe
Indeed.
smokes.
Preferably 2 armchairs and a waiting flask of
A
brandy.
fine brandy.
And if we're feeling cheeky, maybe a cigar.
Path of Daggers. Let's focus up. It's
So,
my bad.
Path of
My
Daggers.
bad, guys. I blame the madness.
So, no, you're good. You're good.
Or the
so
rum.
Elaine, Mhm. So Elaine, Nynaeve, and Avienda have used the Bowl of the Winds, which of course is kind of called, not kind of, has called the attention of the Shan domain
Right.
and Soldam to the farm they're hiding out on. So they flee by traveling to Andor, and by the end of the book, by chapter 28, Elaine officially lays claim to the Lion Throne through blood lineage,
Correct.
through her mother, all the way back to Ashara. In the meantime, Perrin has moved into Geldon in an attempt to stop Mesama Dagar, the self-proclaimed prophet of the dragon. Like, you remember the guy in the Great Hunt that hated hated Rand's guts, and as soon as he
Yeah.
found out he was a dragon, turned around and
Yeah, I do remember
worships
that.
him.
It was a
We
weird
kinda
time.
discussed
The creator
this with the Davram Bashir episode, where a lot of the Borderlanders said, when the dragon comes, he will break all bonds, and we will have to declare new oaths. And the prophet is a really great example of this, where he kind of goes, I don't know. You illustrated it very, very well. There's a flip there where he's like very suspicious, very he hates Rand. He just thinks he's one of the most terrible people. But then once he realizes he's the dragon, all bonds are broken.
You know what it reminds me of? You know what it reminds me of? You know how in the Spider-Man movies, like Spider-Man Homecoming, the newest one, not the newest one, because I don't want to spoil that for anybody that hasn't watched it yet. It's a good movie, go watch it. But you have the character of Flash that hates Peter Parker, but is like in love pretty much with Spider-Man. The only difference is that he doesn't find out Spider-Man is actually Peter Parker. Whereas Mesama does learn that Rand is in fact the dragon. But also in association with Perrin, everybody's absolutely most favorite event gets kicked off in this book with Fael
Oh, good
and
God.
the Shido Isle.
I'm so glad that you're being sarcastic, because good Lord.
I mean, some people might enjoy it. Yeah. For all we know, this could be Brett's favorite story arc in the Wheel of Time.
Oh, don't worry. Yeah, I was going to say that with the whole Prophet of the Dragon and Fael being captured, I am pretty sure that is going to be entirely cut out of the TV show. Just going to go on record right now and say it. I like the Prophet of the Dragon, and I like Massima's whole storyline there, but
I don't disagree
think that
with
they're
you.
going to
In
be putting
fact,
that in.
like, I thought that personally already, and then you add on to the fact that I've been following the different things that have been happening on Twitter and the different polls that people have been making and whatnot. And File's rescue is without a doubt the least favorite moment in a Wheel of Time, or like story arc of people in a Wheel of Time fandom. And so I can 100% appreciate that, like, the writer's room is going to look at that and just be like, all right, cool. So they don't want this. Let's not do it.
You're gonna have like an entire book
Which,
just
like,
axed
to
from the
be
script,
honest,
so.
if we're being
there'll be bits and pieces.
realistic, 14 seasons for a TV series is a lot. So if they cut it down to like 10 by just cutting out certain storylines, especially just this entire book, I'm not going to be so obnoxiously offended.
I will.
I mean, the main storyline loses nothing.
No one asked you, Ashaman.
Excuse me.
Sort of on mail.
If the Dragon arc from like this point, from where we see it in Path of Daggers, because he serves a purpose with Nynaeve and Elaine when they're leaving Val Luca's circus. He serves a small purpose then in Uno and all them, but at this point they're like, they're gone, or they don't address him ever again, and Fael doesn't get kidnapped. Which I believe Fael's not the only one who gets kidnapped at that point, right? Does she link up with is that when she
Yes,
meets
Morghese is already
them?
with them by the time
Morghese is already with them.
That's right. And she's kidnapped. Right. They're kidnapped together.
Yes.
I believe, right? Right. Was
Right,
it just
well,
those
yeah,
two?
there was sort
I mean,
of
I know there were some members of Chafael that were
kidnapped
too.
Where the Shido was like, "Listen here, we're going to take their main. I think their main target was Morghese, and they ended up taking Fael and a couple of Chafael."
And I think was
and
Alejandra
she
with
also
them
gets
too?
captured. The only one in that group who does not get captured is Berylane.
That's correct, because doesn't Chayad and Bane, do they get captured too?
Yeah, because there's the whole argument. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Never mind.
Yeah, we're actually toting the line here, because what we're leading into is a lot of the story arc from Winter's Heart.
Yeah.
Yarp.
Yeah. Which I'd only feel like 50% sad for ruining that part of Winter's Heart for anybody, but that's because like a ton of the fandom, it's not my favorite section of the main series. I appreciate. I think the objective Robert Jordan was trying to get with that, as far as the main characters involved.
Well, isn't that?
But
I mean,
for me, it just wasn't compelling enough.
We've discussed this in previous episodes where we talk about sort of the slog, and the slog of reading some of these chapters that don't immediately seem to be enticing or exciting are more like their investments and they pay off in the long run. But isn't his parents, I'm referring to, isn't his sort of his frenzy, his desperation to find Fael, isn't that sort of the inspiration, or what gives him the direction he needs to eventually spend some time at the forge, if you will? That's one of those spoilers without being spoilers, if you know what I'm saying.
I mean,
yeah, I would have to agree with you, because that is an introductory point to Perrin switching his choice of weapons. Because what he does to save her,
so
as it is.
Yeah, so none of it. I will agree that there's very little, if anything, in the entire series that serves no purpose. Without Perrin moving into to Geldon and trying to stop the Prophet of the Dragon, to stop Mesama, he would have never been in a position to run into the Shido Isle, and Fael would have never been captured, along with
Alejandra.
Morgaze and Chad and Bane and Alejandra and Ali Oxenpree, which is exactly what Alejandra's name makes me think of. I don't know why.
I feel like that's actually a fairly obvious one.
But probably, yeah, I would hope so. But I think it's one of those things like we can appreciate because we've read through the entire series and we know what happens and where all this ultimately leads. And
Yes.
I think a lot of it is just the relief of getting through the slog that makes us appreciate it so much when we find out where everything connects at the end, or not at the end, but after the slog or towards the end of the slog. But at the same time, I can understand in a 14 book series, because we're not going to include New Spring in this count.
Why not?
Because I'm talking about it in reference to the TV show. It would be very hard to do all that. So, if I had to choose one or two aspects of the book series for them to take out to make it feasible for a TV show, it would definitely be taking out Mesama as the Prophet of the Dragon, at least at this point in the story, and the whole let's rescue Morgaze, and who has done nothing but needing to be rescued for the past several books.
Yeah.
And Fael and Chafael and Alejandra.
I will say this is the portion of the book that I think does a disservice to Morgaze, because she's so capable, so smart, so awesome just in every way. And then after her run-in with Robin, she kind of collapses. Let's just put it that way. I mean, she crumbles. And she doesn't ever seem to
You
recover
take
from
that back
really.
about my stepmom. You take that back right now. She is still a strong, independent woman who doesn't need no help, except for the times that she does.
I'm not saying. Except,
Yeah, try telling that to Towns.
I mean, you know.
I mean, he does kind of learn that on his own, but he never stops trying, and
Mhm.
eventually she just gives in. But let's see what else. Our lovely little tower Amerlin seat, Egwene, because for some reason, I don't. Rebel seems like it always has a bad connotation, but it shouldn't because of Star Wars, which is always weird.
Agreed.
I
Well,
don't.
it depends, right? Are you talking to sci-fi fantasy lovers? That's a good thing. Are you talking to, the current political situation, which we won't get into?
Yeah.
Then you say rebels, and it becomes a bad thing.
Okay, when we say rebels, we mean it in the Star Wars way.
Yes.
The Amerlin seat of the Rebel Aes Sedai. What a comparison! I never thought I'd ever say that in my life, but I'm happy I did actually. Throughout the book, she manages to gain some more control over the Rebel Aes Sedai and the Hall and all the sitters that they have, and finally convinces them to start getting ready to travel to Tarv Island to lay siege to the White Tower. Because she's having conversations with Bryn, who is saying, "Look, I understand you want to get men, but if you don't ever move, they'll have enough food where it won't fucking matter." And eventually, Egwene's like, "Okay, I get it. I got to convince everybody else." And then she sees what Brian has been dealing with this whole fucking time.
Gareth. What a guy.
Yeah.
Granddaddy Bryn.
Dude,
Bryn.
we gotta come up with a really good nickname for Rodell, because we've got some really good nicknames for the others.
Oh, we will. So, listeners, this is your chance to contribute. This is your chance to add to. If you have an idea, if Rodell Iturralde has influenced you or impacted you in any way, let us know. How does Iturralde fit on your family tree? Or how do you think he should fit on the Wheel of Time family tree? We've got Dad
Right
and
now
we've got
Bashir.
Papa Ingtar,
Yep.
or not
Grandpa.
Ingtar, Papa. Oh my God, Agomar, Papa Agomar,
Agelmar.
Dad from Bashir, and
And
Granddaddy
We've got
Gareth.
crazy. We got
Pate,
Yes,
and then we've got crazy Uncle
yeah,
Pedro.
crazy Uncle Pedron. That is correct.
just
Yeah.
self-righteous, crazy Uncle Pedron. Man, I miss that guy.
So when we talk about yeah, too bad his best friend stabbed him. A two brute.
He went down like
Julius
he
Caesar.
lived.
He should be all
He
right.
did. He'll live on.
Always by the children of the light.
Alone in the study.
Indeed.
Oh.
Indeed. True.
I mean,
He's
also
like alone
accurate.
in his study,
That's just
brooding.
You're just saying accurate statements now.
Yeah.
You're just being totally
Oh,
accurate
man.
right now. So
So
I will say
we've got
one of the things that I think that we haven't really hit on. I know we talked a tiny bit about the Little Tower, but this is a very important. I think it's a very important scene, is because at this point in time they've already said, Egwene, you're going to be the Amarillan seat, and I think she feels like at first she's sort of they're trying
Indeed.
to set her up to be a puppet, and they're like, yeah, basically, if all this goes down, we can blame it all on her, and she can be executed.
Which
not
is
us.
funny, because in every
So,
dream that
let's do
Elida
this real
has,
quick.
she definitely kills Egwene, like, no question. But she also murders all of the other sitters for the tower in the Revel Aes Sedai. So the fact that they're like,
I agree.
plausible deniability, you're like, no, you have no plausible deniability.
No,
You're so fucked if this doesn't happen.
As we've established, Robert Jordan loves to shit on the Aes Sedai, and for good reason. I love how Egwene sort of sets herself apart in this series, where she's like, "No, you guys made me Amarillo, I'm gonna own this. I'm gonna own this." Brett, did you have any thoughts with the Little Tower?
I definitely have a couple thoughts with the Little Tower, because I think you're right about Egwene setting herself apart. She really, really kind of comes into her own here, because she is the kind of girl who always looks up to somebody, right? Like at the very beginning of the series, she really looks up to Moraine. Well, before that, she looks up to Nynaeve, then she looks up to Moraine. And then when she's moving into the Little Tower, she starts looking up more to like Swan Sanche and everything too. But I think at the Little Tower is really when she starts to take everything that she's learned from like the wise ones and everybody who she's ever got tutored from, and she really just starts to do things for herself by like seizing power, pulling that whole like switcheroo with, calling it's a time of war, so she gets ultimate power. So I really do like the Little Tower with Egwene, because this is when I really feel that she starts to
Agreed.
act
And
of
I
her own
love
volition
the
rather than
Swan
somebody
Sanche
else's.
line
I think
at
it's-
some point in this book where she says something along the lines of, man, it's really nice in some ways that they thought that they were appointing a guppy, and it turns out that they ended up appointing a lionfish to... Right? Literally every
you gotta
time,
love
always.
Swan's fish analogies.
Also, her
It's the only
fish
thing she
knows.
curses. Ah, fish guts.
Dude, honestly, I am really, really glad that they have gotten somebody who I believe in, at least, to play Moraine. But their next step, don't get me wrong, I want Matt and Perrin and Rand to be really good choices. I really want Nynaeve and Egwene to be really good choices. All of that. I'm certainly not just saying they don't matter. But at the same time, if the person that they get to play Swan Sanche can't throw out some really good fish curses and some really good fish analogies, it's over. It is
And make
over.
them
I will
believable.
not watch season 2 if Swan Sanche is not fish related to the nth degree.
But you
Don't-
will.
don't
But you will. But
don't you put
you'll
words in my
complain,
mouth.
you'll
I said what I
cry.
said.
So listen to this one for casting for Swan Sanche, Jane Lynch.
So
what are your
I'm going to
thoughts?
throw out that I hate it and I love it at the same time. Because, like, on one hand, absolutely goddamn right. I
For, like,
feel
the
like
best and
Jane
worst
Lynch
reasons?
could bring some serious power to Swan Sanche. On the other hand, and again, let me just throw out there, I understand that this is frustrating to come from an actor. I have a hard time seeing her as not the coach from Glee. So
Yeah,
I thought you were about to steal mine. I have a hard time
Yeah.
not seeing her.
in a tracksuit, you know.
I have a hard time not seeing her as the manager from
wow,
the
that's
40-year-old
even
virgin.
that's even like
Or-
stronger
or-
further back and not even as much of a role. But like again, totally valid.
Or one of the
I
trainers,
think.
or one of the dog trainers from Best in
See,
Show.
I never saw that one. I've actually seen all of the other ones that people mentioned, but that one I missed.
You're missing out. Your Best in Show is one of the
I
greatest movies of all
hear
time.
what you're saying and don't believe it. So we'll just continue to disagree.
Oh no! Okay, I can respect that. I respect
But
you,
at
Lord
the same
Dragon.
time, again,
I
I mean,
respect
if
you.
Swan Sanche wasn't running around in a tracksuit, I wouldn't believe Jane Lynch in it. And yet it also doesn't make any sense. So, like, again, on one hand, so much power and so much just righteousness in one woman would be so great. At the same time, like, I don't know.
Sir, I'm going to need you to be a little bit more discreet when dropping bombs like that, because I damn near spit rum and coke all over my laptop.
I feel like that's.
Swan Sanche in a tracksuit.
I
Thank
love
you.
it.
Thank you.
You know what? I'm gonna just throw out there right now. Jane Lynn's perfect choice. Just have Swan Sanche wear a tracksuit. Just that is her costume. That's it.
Like it's
No.
hidden underneath her robes.
Robes
like the
are
entire time.
out. Robes are gone. We're not doing robes for this character. Tracks.
She's just wearing like the Amerlin
Done.
stole over a tracksuit, over a
Absolutely
blue
done. I fucking love it.
Shit. Oh God. Okay. Oh,
So with the going back,
Path of Daggers.
something I like.
Path of Daggers.
Something I like is at this point, Egwene is by
Mhm.
far a cornucopia of cultures. Every culture she has met with, she has thrown herself in and walked away with some part of it. All the way from wandering in the woods or the plains with Perrin and Elias to meeting the Athena Mare. Not the Athena
The
Mare.
traveling
Tinkers.
people.
Um,
The
I don't know why I thought
Tuathan. Which is
Yeah,
why
there
you
you go.
mixed it up with the Athean Mare.
there we go. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, I
It
try to
happens.
say words and it don't work too well.
Words are hard. They are. It's okay.
To like Brett said with the wise ones, to her time in the White Tower, but even more so, she's been a victim of being socialized by the people that have betrayed her. Egwene has been betrayed quite a lot in very, very drastic ways. When Leandrin betrayed her, Annalene and Nynaeve to the Shanchan, obviously being a dark friend herself, Leandrin was, and trying to turn them over, Egwene had to go through arguably, if not the up at least in the top 5 to top 10 worst situations.
Yeah, I'm going to
in
give
the
it top
entire
5.
series. Being a
Definitely.
captive. Yeah. I'm just giving room for argument, just in case I'm like forgetting something that I would rank
In
above
fact,
it.
I would probably say
There's
that
not
that
really
is
much
top
I would.
three, only thirded by Rand's time in the box and Matt's time in Tylen's quarters. Those are the two that I'd give up ahead of Egwene's time with the Shan-Chan, but she definitely gets a solid third.
Oh, I put Rand in the box underneath the Gawain's capture, but number one would be Rand going all the way from the second book of the series, believing that his ultimate destiny is to die.
That's fair. I guess I wouldn't call that a situation. I would call that a mindset, which, again,
Yeah,
agreed.
it's a situation
so,
as far
solid,
as he's
solid
concerned.
choices all around.
So since we're
But
talking
anyway,
about Path of Daggers, I want to throw another contender in here for you for worst situations. How about that of Bors, aka Jacob Carradine?
Nah,
And the reason I say that, well, this is where he ends. He finds his demise at the end of the book too.
it's true. That is very much true.
Yeah. And he's a guy who is definitely not the nicest guy, but his entire family line gets killed one by one because he's getting, different orders from his, managers, as it were, and he can't really follow through with anything.
That's an excellent point. We discussed in the Pedro Nyala episode how different people played into the plot, and Shaidar Haran starts coming to him, and he starts, and I believe it was Jachim Carradine that we talked about, where he kind of started biding his time, where he was like, well, I can kind of stall because some of my family, they aren't that great anyway. but in the end, he ends up losing a lot, and he's like, oh crap, well, I guess maybe I should have taken that a little bit more seriously.
No, and I will admit that most of the situations that I think of as being the most dire and most, problematic and whatnot are the ones that happen to the characters who are just trying to do their best in the light. And I will admit that most of
no love for Boris,
right, and most of the characters that like put themselves in these bad situations because they're like, you know who's really the person who's probably going to win? The dark one. I'm just going to become like a super dark friend and go ahead and do bad things. It's like, but you put yourself in there though, like that was a you choice. That was a thing that you did. I don't have as much sympathy for you as other people because, like, you said the devil would be the good thing to go with, and so of course you're gonna be sad. Like,
how can we have any pity for him?
Let me. Any pity is another strong word. There is some pity there, just not nearly as much as like being locked in a treasure chest by no fault of your own, or being locked in a collar by no fault of your own.
I mean, yes, and that's kind of the point, though, right? Because some people will say, "Oh, well, he was misguided." No, he was a dark friend.
Kind of
guy.
And I mean, like, don't get me wrong. They have these sayings in the Wheel of Time, and I don't actually think that they're wrong in terms of the no one is so far gone that they cannot be brought back to the light. But there are some people who absolutely, without a doubt, never try. They absolutely are not interested in coming back to the light. And to those people, I say, in the ever eternal words of Cad Swain Sedai, fa on you.
So what other plot points are we missing? I think we covered them all. We got the Ball of the Winds. We got Elaine.
Well, there's some interesting things that still happen. There's the interesting scene where the two Aes Sedai and the girls from Amon's Field finally join up with the rebel Aes Sedai.
Oh, that's right.
So that happens, and all these girls that know Egwene as this, moon-eyed girl that was all about Rand. They've already seen Rand as the Dragon Reborn, and they're like, "Do you know the guy? Your boyfriend's the Dragon Reborn?" And she's like, "He's not my boyfriend. I don't even like
She's
each other like that." And
My
I'm the
boyfriend is not
No,
the Dragon
you
Reborn.
understand.
My boyfriend hates the Dragon Reborn. How about you calm down?
my boyfriend is so much worse than the
Right,
Dragon
though?
Reborn.
No, you know what? That's a really excellent point because, again, this is one of those things that we talked about in the beginning, which was different plot points in the beginning of the series that seem to be insignificant that turn out to be quite significant. In the beginning of the series, Moraine sends message back to the tower that maybe it was a mistake to ignore the two rivers because, wow, you've got, I've picked up a couple people that have had the spark in them that have been the most powerful the tower has ever seen in hundreds of years. Of course, referring to Nynaeve and Egwene. And she was like, and there's a lot of other people there. So clearly what's happened is after that transpired, the tower has sent envoys to the two rivers in order to scout out, young women who can channel or who at least have the spark and can
Specifically,
learn to channel.
Varen and Alana.
Exactly. And they bring them back to the little tower. Interesting choice. But they bring them to the little tower, and then you create the scenario in which you've got these people, and I love how Robert Jordan does this, where he's got a group of people who are interacting with, they see Egwene and they're like, oh my God, it's Egwene. Like, this is crazy. You're the same small town girl that we knew before, and we're interacting with you as if you were a small town girl. And Egwene's like, okay, listen here. You need to understand something. I'm the Emerald Seat. And it's a really interesting story plot point that shows how Egwene has grown and her evolution as a character in just that short amount of time. And I absolutely love that. Thank you for bringing that back up.
And of course, this is in chapter 30, and this is the first, last, and only time in Path of Daggers that we see a Cawthon, because Bodwin is one of the girls from Amon's Field, which is almost hilariously ironic given Matt's stance on Aes Sedai in general. And now Bodwin has made it to where she is going to train to be an Aes Sedai, because that's his
dude.
sister.
Matt
Right?
would be
Yeah.
Matt would be furious.
So his
He would be
sister is
beside
training to become a
himself.
sister.
And that's the thing is if Matt, if there's one consistent thing with the character of Matt, is that he has a severe distrust, at best, a severe distrust of anyone who can channel. Anyone, which calls into question his loyalty to Rand, because he's like, well,
How about you shut up?
what do
Matt's
I
my
do
best
now?
friend.
But no, he is not happy with Aes Sedai and women who can channel. It conjures up people who manipulate him. And he really, if there's anything he hates more than that, it's being manipulated.
Oh yeah. So to drive home just how jarring this reunion between Egwene and these girls is, Bodwin is 17 in early summer 999 New Era, and she's just younger than Egwene. When we see her in Lord of Chaos, she had just begun braiding her hair, which Egwene had just done before Rand and
it's like
and
the
all of them
first
left
event
the
or
Two
the
Rivers.
first character thing that we see
at
about
this point,
Egwene. when we meet
Right.
her in the Eye of the World.
Yeah. So we can safely assume that at most, Bodwin is a year to a year and a half younger than Egwene, which makes Egwene 18, maybe 19, as as we see here as the Amberlin. Because if she just started braiding her hair at the age of 17, at most 18, well, it might be 18. She might have turned 18 by the time we see her in Lord of Chaos, which could arguably make Egwene like, what, 19 or 20?
She was...
So according to the statistics that at least people have put out...
I don't know that we get a specific age. All we know from...
Good. Uh-oh, Josh just died.
I died. Hold
yes,
on. Am
you're
I back yet?
Yep, you're
Sorry,
back.
I was just going to say, as far as a specific age, I don't think we ever get a specific age for Egwene. All we know is that in Eye of the World, she is just... She expects that the Women's Council will allow her to put her hair into a braid, which signifies that she is a woman. It's sort of the Emmons Field version.
She's about
yes, in
16
fact.
the world.
And when...
Okay, I think we're going to...
So according to what people have put together as far as ages, because if we're being honest, Robert Jordan doesn't really talk about age that often. The only time that he talks about it is with the kin, and that they are like ridiculously old. But he actually goes ahead and lets sort of the age of everybody else be a little bit flux, which A, I think is just a smart thing. But B, does mean that lots of people have to go ahead and just put their own spin on it, as well as like their own like whatever. But according to many fan sites and such that people have sort of nailed down as close as they can to how old people are in the first book and whatnot, Rand leaves the Two Rivers along with Matt and Perrin as 20-year-olds. Egwene is 16, Nynaeve is 22. Which means that at this point, a little over a year later, Egwene would be 17 and Bodwin would be 16. And so they're solidly young women.
Okay. Well, I think where she's like slightly a little younger than Egwene. I don't even think it's a full year looking at this, because in the Shadow Rising chapter 13, it's early summer, 999 New Era, and Bodwin is stated in the book to be 17 years old. So for her to be 17 in the Shadow Rising, and
I guess that might mean
that
the site's got it incorrect, and maybe Egwene is a year older, so maybe she's 18 at that time, and all of the boys are 21.
Because it's not. Yeah, well, it's only observed in Lord of Chaos chapter 10 that she has begun braiding her hair, which means she could have started braiding it before we see her in Lord of Chaos. It'd just be the next time that she was seen
in
by
Eye of
Rand.
the World, she was...
So I think they're both 17, but I
older.
think Egwene is just
that makes sense.
A couple months older. But even so, that just drives home even more how shocking it has to be. Because she left and she was like, well, she's pretty much the same age as me. She's not that
and
much.
then she's
older than me.
fucking
And then
seat.
when Bodwin and the girl see again, she's without a doubt the most powerful woman leader in all of Randland. Yeah, outside of the Shan Chan Empire. I'm going to argue that the Shan Chan Empress is more powerful just given the size of her forces.
I believe the Shan Chan Empire is the Saw Gerrera to Randland as the rest. In that they're like, I don't care. I really don't care. I don't have a respect for human life that a lot of you seem to have. Hashtag tangent.
Yeah, I think that sounds about accurate, as close as we can get. So
does all that sound right to you, Brett? Yeah. But and then of course, chapter 30, ending point of view is Egwene, and this is the last character point of view we see in the book. Ends with 13 of the rebel Aes Sedai sisters opening a huge gateway to the plains just below Dragonmount, and the army, amassed, marshaled, trained, and led by Gareth Bryan, starts making their way through. And then we go into, I believe, chapter 31 for Path of Daggers is this the first chapter we see that is all narrator?
I think might be correct. We've definitely seen it, turn into narrator at some point in the last chapter. But this might actually be the only one that is fully taken by the narrator from start to finish.
Mm.
Yes.
Mm. And it does a good setup because there's basically rumors that spread across the land concerning the Dragon Reborn, the Ashaman, the Shanshan, and the biggest news amongst the rumors is the rumor of a great clash of
which
armies.
is really interesting because going back to just the POV, the funny thing, and this might actually be a little bit just because Kate Reading, sorry, my bad, actually does the same voice for Moraine as she does for the narrator, but I always felt that it was actually just Moraine narrating all of these things when it's basically like the Kate Blanchett like doing the Lord of the Rings narration. I just always imagined it as just Moraine's voice. I don't know why.
Yeah, I could see that.
Or Kate Blanchett. If Kate Blanchett just wants like, to come do it, I'd love that too. We'll see.
Oh, yeah. But I do like the way Path of Daggers ends because it ends with a really good setup for the start of the next book. You're left with a lot of expectations. So you've got the new drama with the rogue Ashaman. So that leads you like, okay, the White Tower isn't just broken. The Black Tower's got to be broken too, if not totally against Rand. Which it's not totally against Rand, but you're like, there's at least some group of the Black Tower that is against Rand now. So you have that struggle. You have the lesser loved struggle of Fael being kidnapped along. To be honest, the entire time I was more worried that Elaine would never find out that Morghese was alive than I was that Perrin would ever get Fael back. Because I'm like, he's probably going to get her back. It looks like she's, just the way they've been in the past. But I was more worried that something was going to happen to Morghese because her entire thing up to now has been trying to get back to Camelin to try to reclaim the throne. And now that everybody thinks she's alive, she's wanting to get to her daughter and everything, who she is now, okay, she can have the throne. Not necessarily to physically see her, but to see her.
Well, and all of the readers who are smart and inventive are like, dude, if Morghese could just come back and talk the fuck to Gawain, maybe he won't be such a cunt anymore. And so that's all I really wanted Morghese to do, is come back and talk to her son and have him be on Rand's side. And of course, I mean, if she gets killed in in Shido custody, she can't come back and communicate with her stupid self-righteous son and get him off everybody's back.
Morghese, get the kid. Whose kid is this? Get your damn kid. Fucking out here spouting all this nonsense, trying to fight and stab everybody, ain't got a lick of sense. First sword of my ass. Well, that sounds wrong. Never mind. That was not what I meant.
Morghese, you come and talk some sense into your son. Bless his pretty pointy little head.
Oh my god.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very. I think people are going to see some interesting stuff in the coming books that comes from the Shiva, who of course led the initial ambush on Rand and tried to kill him.
Biggest, I don't know. In my opinion, that's one of the most scary plot points in this book, because you sort of see how volatile the Black Tower is. We like to discuss, and I love to imagine myself as a member of the Black Tower, but what people don't realize is how volatile, how unpredictable the tower is. And that's why Rand had to set such a strict, like they even talk about how Mesrim Taim is so strict, but that's necessary, because even Taim is a dark friend, or as he becomes confirmed later on to be. Sorry if you need to bleep that out, but even he fears how volatile these guys are. I mean, it's like being in a room filled with weapons grade plutonium. Like, what do? Like, you can't exactly be
it's standing in Chernobyl. That's what you're doing. You're standing in Chernobyl wondering when it's... Well, and the crazy thing is, you're standing in Chernobyl knowing it's Chernobyl.
Right?
Like, you're not, oh, maybe this could go wrong, maybe whatever. You know that it is Chernobyl, and you're just waiting for it to break down. It is not a situation where you're wondering. It is not a situation where you're thinking this could go wrong.
So,
it is a situation where absolutely, without a doubt, you are knowing that this is going to melt down, and you are just standing there waiting for it to happen, because it always does.
That's a great point about the Black Tower, because one of the main things that I've always liked about the Black Tower is you have like the evil...
Go ahead, Brett.
The evil guys who are insane and the evil guys who are sane, and then you have the good guys who are insane and the good guys who are sane. Like, there's like that, evil and insane are good, like, it's such a mishmash of people, so you never know, who's going to do what.
Yeah, but they're kind of like the Russians.
Yeah.
It seems like, talking about Chernobyl.
Yeah,
because you guys know what the elephant's foot is at Chernobyl, right? It's that still super hot radioactive pile of corium that resulted from the meltdown, and they tried to do everything to break it apart, to sever it, whatever, so they could move it out, and nothing worked until in typical, like, stereotypical meme style Russia, someone took a Kalashnikov rifle, an AK, shot it, and actually made a dent in it. And that's pretty much what Rand has ordered Mesrim Taim to do. Stand there with an AK and fire into the radioactive bunch, just to see what happens, to see how strong he can make it.
And of course, if it doesn't work, and you can't make any dents with your Kalashnikov, just put something in its teeth.
basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, do that.
You can put crimson root in their tea, or crimson thorn in their tea, which is what happens in that chapter, Crimson Thorn. That's how Elaine finds out that there's two of the, I think, nobility in Camelot have been assassinated that way. Because we get to see the game of houses all over again. Deus Damar, the inspiration, the true Game of Thrones, or Game of Houses, whichever way you want to look at it. So suck on that. That's why season 8 was such shite, because it ripped off. I don't care what you say.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you're not going to get any disagreement from this group here. Just saying.
Oh yeah. But for the shortest book in the main series, Path of Daggers, when you're looking at the influential points, a lot of the main points, and there's a lot of really good scenes like we've talked about with the little tower and a couple others. It's you still. I want to say surprisingly, it might be surprising to some, but for those of us that have read the series and are maybe rereading it or whatever have you, it's not really that big of a surprise to be able to pull this much influential stuff out of the book. To see the worth in a book that
very much it seems like a Crown of Swords finished a story arc and Path of Daggers begins a new one, which certainly there is a number of things that you find out as far as answers to questions that you've had. It's not just a building book, but at the same time, it's mostly a building book, and it pays off later in dividends. But it in and of itself feels very much kind of like a letdown if you were to only read that book, because it's so much of a building book.
Mm-hmm.
Always sad.
Oh yeah. Oh, and we would be amiss if we did not mention the absence of Matt, from
Which
the
is so
entire book.
frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Which this is the first, but it's not the first time we've seen this kind of device that Robert Jordan has used, because I believe he's confirmed that Matt was absent from the book due to the injuries he sustained at the end of A Crown of Swords, which Robert Jordan did the same thing for Perrin, who
Indeed.
whenever he made Perrin absent from the Fires of Heaven. So he was like, all right, he got seriously wounded in Shadow Rising, right? Yeah. He was like,
which,
so
like,
he's
on
just
one
not in
hand,
Fires of Heaven. But it was like easily like compensated for with the sexy glue. So we don't really see much compensation for losing Matt. For
No, it's
Matt
true.
not being in Path of Daggers. Which I guess that might be the void. Matt not being there might culminate in the chaos that we see with the traitorous Asham, and
that's
might be the
that's what it
opposite.
is.
Where we
If
get our
he
chaos,
had just been there, Dashiva would not have been who he was.
Oh yeah, just magically would have
Hey-o.
changed.
Wait a
He would have
second.
like swapped bodies somehow.
No, it's I think for the shortest book in the series, it's very poignant and very potent. And it has a lot of plot.
Yes.
And I know we refer to this generally as the slog, but I'm going to propose an idea that what we refer to as the slog still has more plot in it
Yeah, that's
than
true.
almost any other series in existence. Don't at me, bro.
Oh, I agree. No, and one of the things that I've always thought about, and one of the reasons that I called it a building book, for example, is that I think that the slog is misnamed. I think that the slog is foundation, and it's a little unfortunate in terms of the fact that, you know, both the readers are incapable of extricating foundation from exciting things. Because, of course, if you watch a television show or a movie that's multiple parts or whatever, there are lots of people that'll go ahead and say things like, oh, it's really slow at the beginning, or it's really slow in the middle, or it's really slow at whatever point. And really, like, I'm certainly not saying that every series does this, because there are some that are just
Right.
slow, and I get that. But for the most part, there are quite a number of series that when people say that it's going slow, what they really mean is that all of those parts that they really love in the series wouldn't matter as much if they didn't get through that foundation. And it's sometimes a little sad when you see people like stop watching something or stop reading something because, oh, now it's gotten to be a slog, or now it's, you know, gotten too slow or whatever it is. And it's like, see, but 2 books later, and I get that you have to get through 2 books. I'm certainly not saying that, like, that's not an effort. I get it. But at the same time, you don't feel as good at the end of The Return of the Jedi when you get that moment where Darth Vader has the exchange with his son. If you don't get through the slow parts of revealing who the fuck Darth Vader is, like, it's not, all of those parts are built on something. And A Path of Daggers and all of the slog is just the build. It is the point where things slow down a little bit so that you can explain all of what's going to be important later on when you get those amazing payoffs that you absolutely love and look for in the series. So that's my 2 cents. I think that it should not be called the slog. I think it should be called the build.
You know what? As Lord Dragon commands, as thorough in my heel, I'm on board 100%. No more.
So say we all?
So say we all.
So say we all. All right.
Yeah, what he done did said right there.
Love it. No, you've got an excellent point there. And as far as that goes, when it comes to this particular book, like I said, this one holds a special place in my heart because when I was first introduced to the series, this is where, this was my introduction. This is my first bookmark, my first stopping point in the series. And I legitimately felt bad for Perrin. He's on his quest to save Fail, and it kind of shows his sort of struggle there between remaining human enough to actually enjoy and appreciate the love he has with Fail, and delving desperately into the realm of the Wolf Brother to save her. Like, that's where I stopped. That was it. That was the end of the series for me for a long time. And I love this book. I love it, and I think that your move to call it the build instead of the slog, I think fits really well because you talk about a build to a climax that really pays off story wise.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we do from this book, from the ebook portion of it, we do get one of the most well-known and iconic pieces of artwork. Of course, the ebook was released on May 18th of 2010, and had a new cover that was created by Julie Bell, and it's the picture of Elaine, Avienda, and Nynaeve around the Bowl of Winds, activating the Bowl of Winds. Which I think every time you search for the Wheel of Time, you're going to see that picture. I love how the caption just says, like, Elaine, Avienda, and Nynaeve around
I also
the
just
bowl.
love how, like, that is so misrepresentative because, like, don't get me wrong, they are all there and it's absolutely a very iconic moment for them. But at the same time, like, that just discounts literally every other person who was around the bowl. And so I laugh at things like that because, like, on one hand, hilarious. On the other hand, like, so wrong.
Yeah, but it fits in line with history because history often disregards the peripherals and only focuses on the core.
Damn you, history.
Which is tragic sometimes because the peripherals make a difference.
So,
Yeah, actually, because I know I cut out a little bit at the beginning there. We had some couple issues. Did you guys ever end up talking about when the group of Aes Sedai go to the Black Tower and Logain bonds Tovann?
Oh, snap.
Because
how did
because I
forgot
that it was in this book and thought it was in the next one.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure where I cut out or what happened because I know I missed a little bit at the beginning there. But when you asked me what was one of my favorite parts here, I also just love that part when they walk in thinking that they're going to just like take over the Black Tower and then boom, they're bonded and captured.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. In Crown of Swords, that's when Alvarin has the role switch with Elida, and is like, "There's no way you could get message to the group in time."
No, that was
like you just have to leave them to their fate and hope no one finds out what you did.
Such a great, awkward moment.
The Aes Sedai don't understand or realize the sheer scale of the Black Tower at that point. They don't know how many men are channelers. Like
they walk in thinking there's going to be a handful
and there's
of
hundreds.
Misguided men. Yeah,
and they're organized. They're organized.
Honestly, no. To be completely honest, the best part of that is they as you said, you are 100% right about the, they walk in thinking that there's going to be a handful of untrained men who are just kind of dicking around. But the best part is they don't even make it that far. They don't even see all of the hundreds of people. There are like 12 dudes who take them down because they're so much better than they actually even expected them to be, that it's not even a situation where they get to the heart of the White Tower or of the Black Tower and then discover their error. They literally don't even make it that far, and like Logain and his faction just show up and are like, "You're adorable. We're gonna make you bonded."
Look at the cute
Like,
little Aes Sedai.
right? It's great.
I
It's
love it.
so
I
great.
absolutely love
Yeah, I love that part because it really speaks to how like unprepared the White Tower really is. I mean, at the heart of it, yeah.
And how overly
Yeah.
ridiculous they think of their own abilities. Yeah.
But I mean, there's a long rabbit hole there
Agreed.
you could go down about why they're so unprepared. But I think that that would be a lot of spoilers too for later on in the series. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Good times.
Do you remember
Not
what chapter
specifically.
that's
At least not
happens in?
myself.
God dang
Well, he did say
God
he
dang it,
was-
Bobby.
all his notes were on his other computer, which
Yeah, I have literally like
find
no
it.
notes in front of me right now, so I'm just going off of memory here.
as far as my final thoughts on
Oh, no,
this,
no,
on
you're
this
fine.
book is, as I've expressed several times, is that this was the end of the series for me when I originally picked up with the Wheel of Time, when I originally started really reading the Wheel of Time. And it just I love it so much. I enjoy it, and I cannot express how much I love calling it the build rather than the slog, because in any story you get an introduction, a build up, a climax, and a resolution. And I think the Wheel of Time is a story in which you have two introductions, two build ups, two climaxes, and then two resolutions. And I think that when you get into the Path of Daggers, this is the end of the resolution to the previous climax and the beginning of the build, the introduction and the build up to the next climax, which of course is Tarman Gaidon. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And I highly recommend it to every young reader who is currently being introduced to the series.
Yeah, as far as that is concerned, I can't agree more in terms of the fact that obviously a Path of Daggers would not make any sense if you started it as the first book. But if people look at it more as almost the first or the second book in a series, rather than like the eighth book in a series, it holds so much more, because really it is interesting that book 6 really is a turning point and a climax of the series. And so once you finish a climax, granted there is plenty else that has already been built on that hasn't been seen fully to its end. But there is also so much more that you need to do, because Dumais Wells, in so many ways, is the end of a story. It's the end of an era for what began in the Wheel of Time, or in the Eye of the World. And so if you look at a Crown of Swords and a Path of Daggers as the beginning of a new story arc, it takes on a whole new meaning, and it takes on a whole new vision for what's going on in the rest of the story. And it really is almost halfway through, so that kind of makes sense in terms of the, okay, cool, I'm telling sort of one giant story in two smaller parts in 6 books for one and 8 books for the other. And it feels very much like this book is the Dragon Reborn of the second part of the books.
Down.
Oh, and there's also still the Elida ordered Inquisition in the White Tower.
Oh, good God.
Pavara
Which pays off dividends so hard later.
Where they're pulling... oh, yeah. Where they're pulling sisters that they suspect into the lowest levels of the White Tower and forcing them to re-swear their oaths on the oath rod.
Such an interesting scene. And it gave me goosebumps the first time that I read it. That is such an intense point.
Yeah, because there's Zara is the one that we see in chapter 26, the extra bit, which is also the chapter where the second POV is where the White Tower mission to the Black Tower realizes they done fucked up. It's five members of the Red Aja with 50 soldiers that show up, and there's hundreds of men, and they're like,
and they can all channel.
But Laura, nearly choked to death.
Yes.
Oh
man, I remember that part.
And Zara gives a name of 9 other moles, including our Bernali, the other white. That's whenever 4 sitters come in the room. Blah blah blah. And they all pick up the oath rod and renew their oaths, adding that she is not a dark friend. All of them follow in kind, except Talene, who refuses, which then reveals her.
And the craziest part about that whole scene is that, or that whole like situation, is that there are 7 Ajas, which right now in the tower there's actually only 6 because the blue has been extricated. But 6 Ajas, and there are 3 sitters for each Aja, correct? So that means that there are presumably 18 people of the like roughly 200 Aes Sedai that they talk about that are in the tower as like really important. That's 18 out of 200. And I kept on forgetting every time I first read this, not only this book, but like the books around it and whatnot, that there are an inordinate amount of sitters who are actually involved in this particular plot that's going on. And I just kept on forgetting that they were sitters, and I would like just assume that they were regular sisters. And then all of a sudden there would be a passage about like just how many sitters were involved. And I was like, holy shit, that's right. Like most of these people are sitters for the Ajas. And I was like, oh, fuck. That means that they're the most important people in the tower. Ugh. It's nuts. Every time there was a passage about it, I was just like, oh, God, yes.
I mean, dude, there's a million.
But I think that's about all that we can cover. Can anybody think of anything else we forgot?
Point is, read the damn book.
Because we're going on 2 hours.
The damn book.
And you know what? I hope that every single fan of ours brings up things we forgot so that we can address them later.
Read the book, comment on YouTube.
I love how
comment on our Discord
read
channel,
the damn book.
Contribute. Yes.
Comment on Podbean. Comment on Twitter. Email us directly. Please, all of the things.
Sauce. If you thought this was awesome, just wait till you get into that. Thank you so much for listening. You guys are freaking fantastic. Keep up the good work. I hope he does.
And Brett, do you want to take a second and plug
Indeed.
the Will Weaves podcast?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I definitely want to say first off, thanks for having
definitely
me
pointed
on.
out
Sorry for all those
things we
technical
missed,
issues at the
so
very beginning
yes,
there,
you
but
did.
hopefully I did it a little bit of justice considering I
dude, you
haven't
did great.
got any notes in front of me here. But so
Yeah.
yeah, so just a little plug for what I do. My wife and I, Danielle, we run the Wheel Weaves podcast, and she is a first-time reader to the series. I finally convinced her to get on board and read the series because I've read it probably about 10 to 12 times throughout my entire life. So the best way to convince her to do that was to do a podcast
And if
about
you
her
guys
first
haven't
read through.
checked it out,
So
please
it's
do.
her who
It's
primarily
one of the
runs the
best. I
show,
love it.
and then I
absolutely
fill in
enjoy it.
all the gaps in information and add some fun facts every now and then too.
What's the podcast Twitter handle for you guys?
It's at Wheel Weaves Podcast.
Oh, geez. You know what? Danielle runs all the social media. I'm pretty sure it's just at the Wheel Weaves podcast or at Wheel Weaves Pod. You know what's funny is prior to running the show, I never had any bit of social media, no
Yep.
Instagram,
At
no
Wheel
Twitter,
Weaves Pod.
no nothing. So this is a totally new
you're right.
area to me for social
It is
media.
Wheel Weaves Pod. Yep.
Indeed. Also, I just want to go ahead and do a little shout out for our fans. We have actually gotten a couple of messages from LF and Matthew Natherlin, which just brightened up my day personally when I saw them on our Black Tower Twitter. Please keep those coming. They make us feel great as far as being able to see that people are listening in general. And also, if you guys want to ask us to do anything, which there have been a couple of requests and whatnot, as well as, if you think we missed anything, if you think that we could be doing something better, we would absolutely love to hear from you. I'm sure that the Wheel Weaves podcast would also say the same, because at the end of the day, I always say this, but it's always true. We have so much fun talking to each other, and we certainly would enjoy doing that without any other reason. But you, the people who are listening, you, the fans, are the reason that we're doing this in podcast form. And we love hearing from you guys in every form it takes. So thank you for listening, and thank you for being a part of the podcast itself, because it means the world to us.
Ditto.
But
yeah, well said.
Well, I think that just about covers it. Again, for any of our links, you can go to blacktowerpod.podbean.com. If you're on mobile, click the little menu icon on the top left, and that'll display all the options and links. And if you're on PC, you'll just see them listed on the left. That's far easier to get to than us listing them all out. And then you can click on the contact tab, and it's got our email written down right there, so you can just copy and paste it too. Because if you're anything like me on the computer, you know enough about a computer to be lazy on the computer.
That was beautifully put.
Oh, yeah. But for, again, we want to thank Brett, again, very much for coming out and speaking with us on the podcast. Love having you. We appreciate Danielle, right? All right. Good. Definitely can't get the wife's name wrong. We appreciate Danielle being willing to.
Well, she's not going to listen to this for a
By
long
that time,
time, so that's
to
okay.
Mexico and living under a different name.
It's adorable
is what
that
I'm
you
gonna call
don't think
myself.
that the Wheel of Time fandom is going to find you. We do a very good job of stalking people online, so
That's true. But thank you, Danielle, for letting Brett come and talk to us and talk about all the spoilerific things that you can't know yet, but in the future you'll get to come and listen to this. And from past Andrew to future Danielle, thank you for listening. If you are,
indeed, I like it. Well, and again, as always, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. This has been another exciting episode of the Black Tower Podcast, a Wheel of Time podcast. For everyone here, I have been Daniel.
I have been Andrew.
And I have been very warm.
Also, Josh.
And I have just been Brett.
Indeed. And we'd like to thank you one more time for coming and listening to us. And hopefully we see you next week for our the conclusion to our 5-part series about the 5 great captains, which will involve Rodel Iturralde.
And good night.
Have a great night, everybody.